That phone rang at 11:52 p.m. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia's hand was shaking as he reached for it, because the man calling had just done something the NYPD, the National Guard, and every politician in New York said was impossible. He'd stopped a riot with his voice. 10,000 people had been burning Harlem. Now the streets were empty, and the most dangerous man in the city wanted to have a conversation. "Put him through," LaGuardia whispered. What Bumpy Johnson said in the next 60 seconds would force the mayor to fire 8 police officers, end careers, rewrite NYPD history. But more importantly, it would prove something that every politician feared to admit. In Harlem, the real power didn't come from City Hall, it came from the streets, and tonight, those streets had a voice. August 1st, 1943, 7:30 p.m. The Braddock Hotel lobby on 126th Street was crowded with the usual evening traffic, working folks heading home, soldiers on leave, families trying to cool off from the August heat. Nobody noticed the tension building in the corner where a white police officer was handling what should have been a simple arrest. Officer James Collins, 34 years old, had been patrolling Harlem for 6 years, 6 years of treating every black face like a potential threat. 6 years of believing his badge gave him the right to put hands on people who looked like they belonged in his neighborhood. Tonight, he was arresting Margie Polite for disorderly conduct. Her crime? Arguing with the hotel manager about being overcharged for her room. Collins wasn't just arresting her, he was making a show of it, grabbing her arm, twisting it behind her back harder than necessary, making sure everyone in that lobby understood who had the power. Margie cried out in pain. The lobby went quiet. People looked. People always looked. But nobody moved, because moving meant becoming the next problem Officer Collins needed to solve. Then Robert Bandy stepped forward. 26 years old, United States Army, home on leave after spending 18 months fighting fascism in Europe, still wearing his uniform, still carrying himself with the pride of a man who'd served his country. He looked at Officer Collins, manhandling a black woman in a hotel lobby, and saw everything he'd been fighting against overseas happening right here in Harlem. "Sir," Bandy said quietly, "you're hurting her." Collins turned, saw the uniform, didn't care. "Mind your business, boy." "I'm not a boy," Bandy replied, his voice steady. "I'm a soldier." What happened next would ignite Harlem. Collins drew his weapon in a crowded hotel lobby, in front of 30 witnesses, and shot Robert Bandy in the shoulder, a soldier, in uniform, for protecting a woman. The bullet dropped Bandy to his knees. Blood spread across his army jacket. Collins stood over him, gun still drawn, and keyed his radio. "Officer needs assistance. Negro male attacked a police officer. Suspect down." A lie. But it didn't matter. By 8 p.m., the word was spreading through Harlem like fire through dry wood. "They shot one of our boys. They shot a soldier. They shot him for being a man." The crowd outside the Braddock Hotel started small. 50 people, then 100, then 500. Angry voices, clenched fists, years of frustration looking for a way out. By 9 p.m., the crowd was a mob, and the mob was moving. What started as a protest became something else entirely. Store windows exploded. Not black-owned stores, those were left untouched, but white-owned businesses that had been bleeding the community dry for decades, those burned. Police cars were overturned. Officers who tried to form lines found themselves surrounded, outnumbered 50 to 1. Commissioner Louis Valentine called Mayor LaGuardia at 10:15 p.m. "We've lost control," he said, his voice barely containing panic. "They're burning everything. We need the National Guard." LaGuardia had 2 choices: send in troops with orders to shoot or watch Harlem burn itself to the ground. He chose the Guard, gave them 90 minutes to mobilize. By midnight, tanks would be rolling through Harlem streets. Soldiers would be pointing rifles at American citizens, and people would die. But LaGuardia had made a crucial mistake. He'd forgotten that Harlem had its own government, its own rules, its own king. 11:15 p.m. Bumpy Johnson walked out of Small's Paradise onto 135th Street. The air was thick with smoke. Sirens wailed from every direction. Glass crunched under his feet. This wasn't organization. This wasn't strategy. This was pain expressing itself, the only way it knew how. His people were destroying their own neighborhood because they had nowhere else to put their rage. Bumpy's lieutenants surrounded him immediately. "Boss, we need to get you out of here. National Guard's coming." Bumpy looked at the burning stores, looked at the police line. 3 blocks away, officers in riot gear waiting for orders to advance, looked at his people running wild through streets they called home, tearing apart the only thing they had because white America had given them nothing else to tear apart. "Get me a bullhorn," Bumpy said quietly. "What?" "Get me a bullhorn and a car. Now." 5 minutes later, Bumpy Johnson was standing on the hood of a Cadillac in the middle of 125th Street and Lenox Avenue, the heart of Harlem, the epicenter of the chaos. His driver leaned on the horn, one long, sustained blast that cut through the noise like a knife. People turned. They saw who it was. Slowly, the shouting began to fade. Bumpy raised the bullhorn. His voice carried through the smoke and darkness with absolute authority. "Listen to me." The crowd quieted, not completely. Glass was still breaking somewhere in the distance. Sirens still wailed, but the people near him stopped, turned, listened. "I know why you're angry," Bumpy continued, his voice steady as stone. "They shot Robert Bandy for doing what any man should do, protecting a woman, and that cop will probably get a medal while Robert fights for his life in some charity hospital." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, angry agreement. But Bumpy wasn't done. "But look around you. Look at what you're burning. Whose neighborhood is this? Yours. Whose stores are these? Some are yours. Whose homes? Yours. You're destroying what's already yours because you can't destroy what's really hurting you." A voice from the crowd. "Then what do we do? Let them keep shooting us." Bumpy looked in the direction of the voice. When he spoke again, his words carried the weight of 37 years in Harlem. 37 years of watching his people get beaten down by a system designed to crush them. "You want justice? Real justice? Then you go home. You check on your families. You let me handle this. Because what you're doing right now, this is what they want. They want you to burn your own streets, so tomorrow they can roll tanks through here and say you're animals who need to be controlled." The crowd was listening now, really listening, but Bumpy wasn't appealing to their reason. He was speaking to their survival instincts. "You see those cops, 3 blocks down, they're waiting for you to give them an excuse, because when you do, they get to shoot. And when the bodies pile up, who gets blamed? The cop who shot Robert? No, you, the people who fought back." Bumpy stepped higher on the car hood so everyone could see him. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home. You're going to take care of your families. And tomorrow morning, when the sun comes up, those cops who think they can put their hands on our people are going to learn what happens when you cross Bumpy Johnson." Someone in the crowd called out, "What are you going to do?" Bumpy smiled. "Cold. Dangerous. I'm going to make a phone call." 11:47 p.m. The streets were clearing. Not because the police ordered it, because Bumpy Johnson did. People were going home, checking on elderly neighbors, making sure children were safe. By the time the National Guard rolled into Harlem at midnight, there was nothing to suppress. The riot was over. The Guard commander radioed Mayor LaGuardia. "Sir, situation appears contained. Streets are empty. We're not sure what happened, but whatever it was worked." LaGuardia sat in his office, confused and exhausted. He'd mobilized the National Guard for nothing. Somehow, impossibly, the riot had just stopped. That's when his phone rang. "Mayor," his secretary's voice came through the intercom. "You have a call. Says his name is Bumpy Johnson." LaGuardia's blood went cold. He knew the name. Every politician in New York knew the name. Bumpy Johnson was the unofficial mayor of Harlem, the man who really controlled those streets. But Bumpy Johnson didn't call politicians. Politicians pretended men like Bumpy Johnson didn't exist. "Put him through," LaGuardia said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Mayor." Bumpy's voice was calm, almost conversational. "This is Bumpy Johnson. We haven't been formally introduced, but I think you know who I am. Mr. Johnson, I'm aware of your reputation." "Good. Then you know I just did your job for you. 10,000 people were in those streets tonight, and I sent them home. Your police couldn't handle it. Your National Guard got here after it was over, but I stopped it. You're welcome." LaGuardia bristled. The audacity of this man. "I don't recall asking for your help." "You didn't have to ask," Bumpy replied, his voice still deadly calm. "See, unlike you, I actually live in Harlem. These are my people, and I wasn't going to let them destroy themselves because your cops don't know how to act like human beings." There was a pause. LaGuardia could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. "Officer Collins has been suspended pending investigation," LaGuardia said finally. "Suspended." Bumpy's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mr. Mayor, that's not going to work." "Excuse me? Here's what's going to happen," Bumpy continued, and now LaGuardia could hear the steel beneath the politeness. "Officer Collins is gone, not suspended, fired, and every other officer in that precinct who's beaten a black citizen without cause. I have names, Mr. Mayor. 8 of them, they're gone too. You can't just—" "I'm not demanding anything," Bumpy interrupted. "I'm informing you, because here's the situation. I stopped this riot, but next time some cop puts his hands on one of my people, I won't stop it. I'll arm it. You think tonight was bad? Tonight was me showing restraint." The line went quiet. LaGuardia felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "You can't threaten the mayor of New York City," LaGuardia said, but his voice lacked conviction. Bumpy laughed, not cruelly, almost fondly. "Mr. Mayor, I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you a solution. You want peace in Harlem. You want your police to patrol those streets without getting bricks thrown at them? Then you clean house. You get rid of the cops who think their badge gives them the right to brutalize black people." He paused. "Let that sink in. You do that, and I guarantee you won't have another riot. I'll make sure of it. But if you don't," Bumpy's voice went deadly quiet, "if you don't, then next time I won't make a phone call. I'll make a statement, and you'll have a war on your hands that makes tonight look like a church social." LaGuardia gripped the phone with white knuckles. Everything about this conversation was insane. He was the mayor of the largest city in America, being dictated to by a gangster. But he also knew Bumpy was right. The riot had stopped the moment Bumpy Johnson told it to stop. The man on the other end of this phone line had more power in Harlem than any elected official. "I'll look into the matter," LaGuardia said weakly. "You have 72 hours, Mr. Mayor," Bumpy replied. "After that, I can't control what happens." The line went dead. LaGuardia sat in his office for a long time after hanging up, staring at the phone. He'd just been given an ultimatum by a man who lived outside the law, a man who'd just proven he controlled 10,000 people with nothing but his voice and their respect. The mayor had a choice to make. Fire 8 police officers at the demand of a black gangster, ending his political career, or wait and see if Bumpy Johnson was bluffing. LaGuardia made his choice, August 4th, 1943. Page 7 of the New York Times carried a small story. 8 NYPD officers dismissed following internal review. No details, no names, no explanation, just gone. Officer James Collins was fired and charged with assault. The charges were later dropped, but he never wore a badge again. In Harlem, word spread quickly, not about the newspaper story, about the phone call, about what happened when you crossed Bumpy Johnson's people, about who really protected the neighborhood when the politicians and police failed. 3 days after the riot, Mayor LaGuardia quietly implemented new training protocols for officers working in minority communities, new oversight procedures, new rules about excessive force. He never publicly acknowledged the phone call, never admitted that a gangster had dictated policy to the city government. But for the rest of his term, LaGuardia was very, very careful about Harlem. Years later, in 1965, when Malcolm X was assassinated and tensions in Harlem reached a boiling point, the NYPD didn't call the mayor for advice. They called Bumpy Johnson, because they understood what LaGuardia had learned that night in 1943. In those streets, the real power didn't come from City Hall. It came from a man who understood that sometimes the only way to stop violence is to have the courage to stand in the middle of it and say enough. A man who proved that one phone call from the right person can change more than 1,000 laws from the wrong people. Bumpy Johnson never wore a badge, never held elected office, never took an oath to serve and protect. But on August 1st, 1943, he did what no politician or police commissioner could do. He saved his community from destroying itself, and then he made sure the people responsible for causing the destruction faced consequences. That's not just power, that's leadership. Officer James Collins lived the rest of his life knowing that one moment of brutality had cost him everything. 8 other officers learned that badges don't make you untouchable if you abuse the wrong community. And Mayor LaGuardia learned that in America, sometimes the most powerful man in the room is the one who doesn't need a title to command respect. The riot lasted 4 hours. The phone call lasted 3 minutes. But the message echoed through New York's power structure for decades. Don't cross Bumpy Johnson's people. Don't mistake his calm for weakness. And don't ever forget who really runs Harlem. Because when you control the streets, you control the city. And when you control the city, even mayors have to listen when you call.